Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series finale of What If. A fantastic, great series finale. You might not agree with me, but that's just how I'm feeling. I'm just finished the episode, so, maybe my opinion might change later on. But for right now, I feel like this is just fantastic. It was beautiful. It was sad. Just so many great things went down in this episode. So let's break it down. So we kind of get a little bit a look into Uatu's past. Not a lot about who he was before, but just specifically the Watcher that's voiced by Jason Isaac is the one who, because I think all of them together is the Eminence. I thought it was one, maybe, I don't know. Because I think them as a trio is the Eminence, but I didn't know if that was just Jason Isaac's characters, like his title specific, because I think the other two do have different titles, but maybe I'm mistaken. Either way, he's the one that took the Watcher under Uatu under his it's like, you are my disciple, you're my greatest disciple. And he believes, he believes in Uatu about watching and observing. But for Uatu, it's like, but I mean, what if you're wrong about me? But he's like, no, I know I'm not. Kind of taking the oath and showing what they're meant to do, to simply observe. And I love Uatu when he first takes on the position of the Watcher. He's like, oh, it's beautiful. He's like, no, it's not beautiful, it is. You're meant to observe and kind of keep the balance of the multiverse by just simply watching. And it's like, you won't fail me. And then hard cut to him saying, you failed me. And he, they berate Uatu for the choices he's made. But for him, it's like, I've done what I've done because it's been for the betterment of the multiverse. It's like, if I hadn't interfered, the multiverse could have been in danger in so many capacities. Yeah, but what about this? What about that Doctor Strange from episode 4 of season 1? He eventually came back last season to basically, not only did he destroy his own universe, but that same Doctor Strange tried to create his own. Yeah, but he might have, but he sacrificed himself in an attempt to bring back his universe. So yeah, there was bad with it, but there was also greater good in the end. And it's kind of showing the capabilities of people, because obviously from their perspective, it's like, you've shared our secrets with normal humans, mortal beings that aren't supposed to know this stuff. But it's like, there has been good that's come about it. Us not interfering with the multiverse is kind of bad. Just sitting back and just observing isn't enough, because he talks about the fact is because of what Strange did, there exists a whole other universe. You need to kind of water it and allow it to grow and spread. And it's like, just watching it is stifling it and not allowing it to grow. There's new worlds and new opportunities and new potential kind of put out there, with new universes being created out there in the multiverse. But then it's like, oh yes, what about all the times you interfere, like saving Riri Williams or Reed Richards, which I thought was interesting. Said specifically Reed Richards did not say the Fantastic Four, because the reason why, obviously, just a thought exercise or just fun speculating. It's interesting because, well, we're getting a Fantastic Four movie next year, and it takes place in a different time. It takes place in a different universe from the sacred timeline, mainline continuity of the MCU. So the big question everyone always had is well, how did they go from their universe to the mainline timeline? And people are like, well, most likely they escape Galactus, because Galactus is in that movie. So it's like, maybe he devours their world or their universe and they end up here. And part of me is like, oh, what if he ended up helping or nudged Reed Richards in the right way to kind of lead him and his family to the main timeline of the MCU? There's that. Or it could just be he ended up helping out a completely different Reed Richards out there in the multiverse. We'll see. It probably won't come up in the movie because it probably won't be that Reed Richards. It'll probably be some other version. But just, like I said, just kind of a nice thought exercise. I forgot the other person he mentioned. And then finally he mentioned Madison with 2 N's and 1 Y. And just Uatu's like, which I'd like to believe. I was like, yeah, once again, another thought exercise. It'd be funny if that Madison he helped out ended up being this Madison we know from She-Hulk, specifically the one from the MCU continuity. I would love it if that was the Madison you helped out. You're the reason why she was able to kind of survive her situation and hang around Wong, her and Wongers. I would love that. I was just like, which also, it's funny and cool, but it's also sad at the same time, because immediately I'm like, oh man, because it made me go oh wow, we never did get anything She-Hulk related, sadly. I was like, oh, that's such a bummer. Yeah, because Jennifer never showed up in this series. Yeah, not this, because obviously this season dealt with phase 4 and 5. I can't remember if last season had any phase 4 stuff. I don't think so. I think this was the first season to have phase 4 and 5 stuff, definitely. But either way, it's just it's kind of bummer we never got anything with Jennifer in that capacity. But nevertheless, that's what my mind immediately went to. But yeah, it's like he's going to also not only punish Uatu, but also Peggy. And he's like, wait, Peggy, what are you doing here? She's like, here to rescue? He's like, what? But luckily they're not alone because Ultron busted in. He's like, Ultron, no, this can't mean. She's like, oh my God, you're here. She's like, wait, he's with you? It's like, yeah. He's like, wait, what's going on? Get to the ship. Ship? What ship? And I even love Peggy being like, see, it was all worth it to be able to see that look on your face. First time in your entire existence you've ever really been surprised as a watcher. So luckily and sadly, Ultron stays behind, which that situation was brutal. I don't know if you'd say that's more or less brutal than the Vision situation in Infinity War when Thanos took the Mind Stone from Vision. I'm like, I don't know if that, because it's like, well, him just reaching in and just pulling out of his head versus it's like now they basically popped your head. It was just like, I don't know which one is more effed up. It's just kind of, I mean, granted, that's Ultron, but it's also kind of Vision, so it's also, I mean, it's more Ultron than Vision, and he tried to do the right thing, because for him, it's like, this is what I'm programmed to do. It's his way to make up for the mistakes he's made, so it's like, so it's just like, I don't know which one's more brutal. I think you could probably make the argument that the Vision one in Infinity War is still brutal, because Wanda had to sit there and watch it. Well, she had to kill him first, so it's definitely more brutal, because she had to kill him herself, but then Thanos rewound it and killed him. So it's like, ugh. So that one's probably definitely sadder. But now it's like they're on the run, but it's like, where do we go? The Eminence can find us anywhere. There's nowhere in the multiverse to hide. So Birdie's like, well, we can hide in between the multiverse. But it's like, that's not going to buy them enough time. Like, how do we deal with them? They're the most powerful things in existence. How do you fight that? And it's like, well, we need to go somewhere that would be able to kind of deal with their powers. And that's the evil Doctor Strange. Like, his universe, even though he sacrificed himself, his existence, he exists in every atom of that universe. So if he's conscious enough, if they can get to his universe, he can end up helping them, with them. But they quickly dispatched of Ultron and dealt with our heroes. I was like, yo, like that moment of just like breaking their ship apart piece by piece, like burning it up like that, then falling to a planet. It's like, cool. Sadly, we didn't make it. So it's like, what do we do? And you have to fight these guys, but it's like they're outmatched. They're fighting three of the most powerful beings in existence that, I mean, I'd assume they're at the top of the power scaling. I don't know. But yeah, like our heroes can't really do much, not even Uatu necessarily in this moment. So he's putting up a barrier to protect everyone individually, and they're getting smashed up against some rock, and he ends up making them take the oath, which I'm immediately like, oh, that's sad. I mean, Peggy, she's kind of lost a lot, so she might not have as much to go back to. Cohorty, maybe in the same boat. Storm, maybe. But it's like, well, we know Birdie's got her mom and dad, so I was like, oh, that means giving up all of that. But we'll get to that later. So I was kind of sad them taking the oath, but they all basically gain the powers of watchers, and I was like, oh, that's beautiful, because this whole the theme of this episode was about like, right, like a watcher's not supposed to be anyone, like, because I only know Uatu's name just because I heard someone else call him by his name, because from the comics and stuff, but he's supposed to just be the watcher, and this is the first time, like, Peggy's hearing his name, she's like, ooh, Uatu, and Cohorty's like, oh, it's actually a really strong name, but for him it's like, yes, the theme in this was no one's a no one. Everyone is someone. Like, your individuality does matter. So even though he had abandoned who he was, giving up all your will, your desire to be a watcher, that's part of the deal. But Uatu chooses this because it's like, right, this is who I am. This is what I'm choosing to do. I mean, he's kind of done that before, whether it was fighting Ultron in season 1, gathering up the Guardians of the Galaxy last season. I mean, back in season 1 as well. Guardians of the Multiverse. I keep just saying Guardians of the Galaxy. Sorry, Guardians of the Multiverse, and then the whole situation of like, Peggy and Cohorty fighting Strange last season. So, but I love like how badass it is the moment like they've all got the powers of a Watcher now, and he armors up too, and the other Watchers armor up, and it just turns into this badass battle, which I love it so much. Especially like Storm's line of like, for all my life, I basically called upon nature. I am now nature. They even play like a little bit of the X-Men. They oh god, from the animates. I don't think it wasn't the main theme. I think it was something else from the X-Men series. I once again, I did not notice that till I think the subtitle pointed that out, I believe. But yeah, I was like, oh, that's pretty bad. I guess it was almost like a natural cosmic storm of sorts is what she made. He had Cohorty like grabbing one of the Watchers and like slamming him through like the rocks that form the ring of the planet, and then like teleporting his sword away from him, and it was just so dope. And then he tries to do the whole like Ultron thing where like Ultron ate like a planet or universe last season, and he tries to do that. I mean, I guess it's also supposed to be a little reflective of episode 2 where was it Arishem showed up, and then like you had Agatha got it going the size of a Celestial too. And I love that he did that. He's got his mouth open wide. At first I was like, oh, is she teleporting inside of him? I was like, no, she just made herself gigantic and put him like, dude, that's sick. And then Birdie flying around glowing. You know what? I didn't even think about it. I'm blanking on it, but like the love interest from Moon Knight because of like the wings and stuff. Because I think that character and hero is specific to the TV show. I don't think that character exists in the comics. I don't, like I said, I don't think Birdie exists either. From what I was looking up, like I googled it episode 4. I was like, does Howard the Duck have a kid? I'm like, to my knowledge, and someone can correct me, I don't think he has a kid in the comics, but I could be mistaken. So I don't think Birdie exists in the comics. So her, Cohorty are like original characters to this, but I don't know. Like I said, the character from Moon Knight, like she kind of like, especially with her wings, especially when they're going glowing gold like that, it definitely reminded me of Moon Knight. Also, Peggy having that badass moment where like her shield gets split in half, but then she has like half a shield on each hand. It kind of makes me think of Steve during Infinity War. I can never remember. I'm like, did he have one or two shields? I know he had like a smaller shield. He didn't have his vibranium shield, but it was a different. I think he only had one small shield, right? But like her splitting it like that kind of made me think of that. And she's able to kind of slam them back together. I was like, oh, that's sick. I was like, that's dope. That whole sequence is just bad. And once again, it's just so beautifully animated too, just because it kind of reminds, like all the color and stuff, because like, obviously I'm currently watching it, but it made me think of like some of the fights from Mob Psycho, like how brightly and like beautifully colorful those fights are a lot of times. It kind of gave me that same like effect to some extent. I was just like, and Uatu's just going up there, once again, him just going fist to fist with that other Watcher, and then like them ending on like a headbutt that ends up being so collateral. I mean, I think it destroys the planet or whatever that they were on. Oh, it's such a dope ass fight, dude. I was like, dude, this show always goes like balls to the walls with its finales, like these big fights, which is always so interesting considering that's like ironically the biggest thing that people always have an issue with when it comes to MCU movies. It's like the third act specifically. It's like, oh, it always ends in a massive CG fight. But it's like, well, I think you're probably more okay with that in animation where it's just like, fuck yeah. I'm always up for a big battle, but like, you know, I guess it's like, especially because like the setup across like all 3 seasons in the, I mean, this is probably like so like I was about to say like Infinity Ultron was pretty big, but I mean, considering the stakes of who you're up against, that even Infinity Ultron couldn't do anything against these, he couldn't do anything against these guys. He easily kind of got squashed. So I get, you know, shows once again power scaling and stuff like that. But yeah, like they all got pushed to the edge and they were like kneeling. And this is Uatu's like, just yield. It doesn't have to come to this. I don't want to fight you guys. Because for the others, it's like you broke your oath. For them, that's the biggest betrayal of all. Of like, you had your oath of what this meant, and you kind of betrayed everything we are and everything we represent. And ultimately, they're kneeling down, being blasted with all this power, but they were never going to give up. And Uatu doesn't want to kill them, so he stops the others but they used this opportunity to combine their power and basically try to wipe every single person there from existence. It's like, we're not just going to kill you and wipe you from existence. We're going to wipe away every version of you, every variation of you across the multiverse. I was like, Jesus, that's brutal. But it's like, yeah, we don't want to take the chance that if one version of you, an outlier of you, could become this, who's to say with the infinite nature of the multiverse that there won't be a repeat of this in the future? And they're all being wiped out, and you see, like, you get a quick shot of just all the different versions of them across the multiverse. Except for Uatu, it's just there's only him. But Peggy's disappearing too, and I thought Uatu was going to do something, but it ended up being Peggy. Peggy's the one that's like, no, I'm not going to lose any more friends, and puts her everything, her entire being into this, and sacrifices herself. And you're just like, damn. And because I just brought this up last episode, I was like, either Peggy's going to have her happy ever after, or it's going to be a thing of she's going to sacrifice herself. And it's like, right, sadly, I think anyone who's had that mantle, who's ever taken up the shield and mantle, always, it comes with a little bit of that self-sacrifice. I mean, but also, like, that's any hero, whether it's like a Tony, whether it's a Cap, but like all those Caps are willing to go above and beyond for people, refuses to lose anyone or sacrifice anyone, because that was also the thing. Aside from self-sacrifice, but that was also something like Uatu was like, why he was willing to share this like power with them, make them take the oath, because he's like, they know what it means to sacrifice, and they're willing to, and Peggy paid the ultimate price. Obviously it's poetic and thematically it fits, because it's like, right, it started with Uatu, yes, but like really this entire series, our first episode was with this version of Peggy Carter, and she's been the character we follow through this series the most. And for it to kind of come down to this also feels like, for this to be her end in a lot of ways, it's I think it's also supposed to thematically like fit the whole, like, right, you started with Iron Man and you ended with Iron Man for like Endgame, sorry. It's also, it still even thematically fits, even though like Far From Home is the end kind of epilogue of Phase 3, it still revolves around Peter dealing with the fact of losing that mentor figure in his, so it still thematically fits even that regard of like the epilogue that is Far From Home. So, but ultimately, Peggy helped push them into Strange's universe. And it's like, because of that, it's like, because he's the ruler of this universe, he limits their powers, so they can't use their powers in his universe without. So he is still consciously aware, even the stars forming into the shape of Strange. And so it's like, oh, you're going to kill us now. But he's like, no. He's like, you told me when I took upon this mission that basically every watcher has to find out for themselves kind of what's the point of watching all this if we can't interfere. And he's like, I'm going to show you what I've learned, and basically the lessons you will potentially learn from this in the grand scheme of things. So Peggy ended up making all this happen, because initially that watcher is like, oh, she sacrificed herself from nothing. But it's like, no, she did. It all mattered in him, because it gave them the chance, and it gives Uatu this chance to try and change his fellow watchers. So they're watching the sun. He's like, oh, it's a sunrise, but Uatu's like, it's not about what it is, just what it represents, and it's kind of like the new dawning of a new day, and also just this chance that Peggy gave them, and an opening of the eyes of the other watchers beyond like just watching. Like, we have to do more going forward. And I just thought that was beautiful. And obviously the end of our last our remaining trio, along with Uatu, holding on to Peggy's shield and saying their goodbyes to their friend. And for it's like, and they end up like repairing the shield and kind of drifted off. Kahorti's like, she's like, her, there is the belief of like, there's, when it comes to death, her people believe that there are more adventures beyond that. And even Storm's asking, like, is there anything beyond all that we've seen? But it's like, there are some mysteries that even, like, obviously he doesn't have the answers to. But it is this thing of, I think it was beautiful where he was like, she watched over us, but he was like, for the first time in all the time I've been a part of all of this, he's like, I feel like for the first time I'm being watched over. He believes like Peggy, wherever she is beyond all this, is looking over them and looking over him. It's kind of nice knowing you have your friend, and and whether that is whatever form Peggy's life is now, having her these grander adventures potentially beyond this. It's still just kind of sad because you're also like, oh, this Peggy never got her happily ever after. But as her and Steve talked about it last season in episode 8, it's like, yeah, maybe somewhere out there they got their happily ever, and they did. And that's the thing of, we don't know how many Steves and Peggy's got their happily ever. It'd be really sad to find out that the ones from the MCU are like the mainline sacred timeline. It's the only Peggy and Steve that ever got their happily ever after. Maybe, maybe not. But it's just the whole situation of, that's a silver lining, even if it's just them, which is really sad to think about across the multiverse. But if even one Peggy and Steve are able to have their happily ever after, then that's kind of a nice thing for all Steves and Peggy. Sadly, not every Steve and Peggy can have their happily ever after, but still, it's a bummer that it came down to this. But I would hope and believe that maybe some shape or form that Peggy can return, but probably not. The end of that Peggy doesn't mean anything, because obviously there's still so many other Peggys out there in the multiverse. But it's like, once again, this is a hero we've followed all the way through in her journey, and it's just kind of sad to see things go this way. But like I said, thematically and overarching wise, it fits narratively speaking wise too, and just, I don't know. It's been beautiful to see that journey, and you just kind of wish she had her happily ever after. But the journey she's made, the effects that she was kind of the first one that kind of lead the charge with the changes in the multiverse, that like Uatu kind of presented her with this knowledge and sent her on this journey. And it's like the friends she's made along the way, the effects that she's had on the multiverse, the lives in the universes she saved, that impact will always be there, and she will always be remembered. Her sacrifice was not in vain. So it all had meaning, it all had purpose, her existence, no matter how small. Because that was something Uatu was saying, like, you were so busy looking down upon all these things, that's why you didn't see this coming, because it never crossed your mind that there would be something that could blindside you. You never even considered it, because you looked down on everything you looked over, and it's like, there is so much more here than you can kind of realize, so. But I love that because we never got the intro for the episode, we kind of get that as the outro, and obviously ending once again where you start, because you have the intro to the show being the outro to the show. So just that was kind of beautiful, like I said, yet sad thing. It's always sad when stories end with like what is kind of the main protagonist dying. So it's always sad in situations like that. So. But yeah, I really loved the show. I'm really sad that this is the end. Once again, there's so many other stories we could have gotten. For whatever reason, I don't know whether it's just Marvel made that decision, or whether it's just like a ratings thing. They're like, yeah, the show might not be like, for all the time and effort put into it, maybe the show just doesn't get the highest ratings. I've enjoyed the show. I know it's been very hit and miss for some people. Some people like this first season more than the second season. I've loved every season. I've enjoyed every story. Some stories people like more than others. Once again, I've just enjoyed everything. I just thought it was kind of a fun series that can hit you emotionally, but also just, once again, just have fun and just do some really interesting things. But I'm still bummed we won't get more. I hope some of this, whether it's Uatu or whatever. I mean, we have seen the Watchers in the MCU, like it's just kind of a little cameo appearance, because they was talking to Stan Lee's character, one of his many cameos, and I can't remember what movie that was. It might have been one of the Guardians movies. I don't remember. But other than that, there's the whole situation of like, I'd love like Uatu, and more specifically, and some of this to carry over into the mainline MCU. Maybe Uatu making an appearance in Secret Wars, maybe type of situation. I don't know. But I mean, it's sad for things to end here, but I'm also grateful for the show. Just once again, just being everything that it was, and I've enjoyed the show, and I'm very grateful to everyone involved. The actors who were able to come back to reprise their roles. Some obviously weren't able to, but the people who were able to fill in for those who could not come back to reprise their respective roles, thank them as well. Just everyone involved in front of, well, you know, the animators, the writers, the directors, like everyone involved with this project from top to bottom. Thank you so much for the series, and I wish everyone the best in their future endeavors. Obviously, like Marvel Studios has, you know, created the television division, the main movie division, and then there's obviously an animated division. So we'll probably see a lot of these people going forward, because I know Brad Winterbaum, does he, I think he handles television in general. I think he kind of oversees animation and television. I could be mistaken. So we'll probably see a lot of names and faces maybe associated with other animated projects in the future. Like we've got a few coming next year, one of which will be the What If Zombies, which is sadly going to be a one-off, but we'll get a little bit more, and that's obviously going to be one very concentrated what if story. But still, well, it's just Marvel Zombies. It's not really a what if story, but kind of is. But you get what I'm trying to say. So we're not fully done, but we kind of are, if you know what I mean. But yeah, but obviously I've rambled off for long enough, because once this recording stops is when it really hits me that it's over, But yeah, till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.